Hello and welcome again to River Valley Farm. Today we're going to talk about my sprayer. Now, excuse me, it's very hot, or very sticky. Anyway, I should say it's not really hot, but it's damp. As I said before, this is something that was in the family for a long time. Matter of fact, this year is at least 40 years, if not it's longer than that. And it's not been in the family the whole time. It was sold off about 15 years ago by my great uncle, whom we'll talk about a little bit too. But anyway, so as I've mentioned, I acquired a sprayer. I've been looking for a a little pull type or 3-point hitch sprayer to go on the tractor for well, 2 years or better probably. And I couldn't find one, or well, I should say I could find lots of them, but not, I'm not willing to borrow money to do what I'm doing basically. So anyway, I got this back. Ladies and gentlemen, or whomever is watching, meet John Deere Blue. Okay, this is, or started, and still is, a John Deere 600A high cycle sprayer, common in vegetables and cotton in let's say early 60s. Or maybe late 50s, I don't know. Probably late 60s or early 60s, because we have a 4-cylinder John Deere engine. Okay, those didn't exist really until 1961. Anyway, this is like the same as is it a 1010 or a 2010 John Deere tractor would have. Okay, I think it was a 2010. So anyway, some changes have been made over the last 15 years, and that's okay, because it was never a showpiece. It just wasn't. It never was. It functioned, and that was about all you could say for it. So my dad, my great uncle, and second cousin went together late 70s, let's say. I don't know if it might have been 1980. That's why I say it's been 40 or so years ago. Okay. They all went together, found this thing at a junkyard down in close to Shelbyville, Kentucky. I don't expect anybody to really know where that's at. But anyway, it had, at the time, this was supposed to be the one that would be the easiest to fix, mind you, okay? It had no paint left on it. It was a pile of rust. It had no fenders. It had no fuel tank, no spray tank, no booms, nothing, basically. It was a hull. Okay, so, but it was supposed to be fairly easy to get running, like, throw a set of points in it and start driving it. I don't remember, I wasn't even born yet, let's put it that way. I wasn't even born yet when this thing came to be. Like I said, it had, I think, one back tire with it, or was it the front wheel? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Anyway, it had wheels but no tires, missing a spray tank. It was a pile of rust, missing a gas tank. Like I said, it came out of a junkyard. But otherwise, it was complete. Engine, transmission, and the frame of the machine was in good condition. It was missing a seat, all kinds of other stuff. So anyway, far more people, well, let's see. My grandfather on my mom's side, my great grandfather on my mom's side, one of my other great uncles all contributed into this thing. A couple more cousins, obviously, so on and so forth. And they really didn't even have notion of making it a sprayer at that point in time, but that came a year later, probably. Okay, they wanted this thing to drop tobacco sticks with. So anyway, I don't think I even have one back here in this barn. But anyway, you've got these sticks that are like, you know, 4 feet high or so, that are like 4 feet long, about an inch square or so. There's a little bit of variance in those things. And amongst the family, they had enough tobacco to warrant having something to carry the sticks through the field so they could drop them and lay the sticks out so they could come through and cut the tobacco off, spear it on a stick, and leave it in the field to cure for a couple of days, and then take it back up to the barn and hang it so it could finish curing out. Anyway, long story short, that was their original intended purpose for this. Like I said, spray tank came along later. So anyway, when they brought this thing in, the three owners, dad, great uncle, cousin, went together down there with the trailer that one of them had built. I don't even know which trailer they took or anything else, but one of them, they had gone into homemade trailers because they could pick up house trailer frames for little nothing, and started making trailers for themselves. And I think everybody ended up having one, so on and so forth, whatever. They took that down there, they hauled it back home, got it drug up on the trailer, hauled it back to their shop, hauled it back to the great uncle's shop. Got it off the trailer, got it inside, and tried to turn the engine over. Couldn't turn it. Could not turn it. They had, I don't even know, they had whatever it was, the story goes. Anyway, they had 3 of them. They had a long enough cheater pipe. They had 3 of them hanging on it. Couldn't turn the engine. Okay, that's a problem, right? So they had then to take it apart. Found that it only had 1 piston and sleeve left in it. Luckily, cousin had just then overhauled recently, like within a couple of weeks, a John Deere, whatever it was, 2010 tractor. So they went to the dump on the farm there, because you know you were still allowed to do that at that point in time, and pulled the old junk worn out parts from that engine out of the dump, cleaned them up, and put them in here. Okay, like I said, this was 40 some years ago. It's never been opened up since. Okay, my great grandfather had done tin work. Okay, I think this is the original John Deere fender up here. I think that was the original one. I think it had the original, I think it was the front wheel that still had on it. Anyway, back in the teens and 20s, he had worked at a place where they made tin parts. So though he was 90 something at the time this thing was brought to life, he came down and supervised, I guess you could say, making the fenders, because he knew how. Nobody else there had ever done that. It's been something else to have this thing around for all these years, and I'm trying to remember all the details of it. Anyway, the other great uncle got involved because he was a millwright. Okay, millwright all over the area here, basically factory maintenance, plant maintenance, whatever you want to call it. He came up with the paint. Okay, he had I don't know, 4 or 5 gallons of this paint, blue paint laying around. Okay, that's where he came into it at. I think he also helped on the fenders. Anyway, so it took them about 3 days, I think, and they had this thing running because their only other option was to then throw as many sticks as they could carry, which, you know, as you can imagine, packing these things on your shoulder, 50 or so at a time. They're 4 feet long, packing through the field, take it off your shoulders, land it on the ground as you're going through the field. You know, not only was it really time consuming and hard work to do that, it was also damaging to the crop. All right, you know, tobacco is sold by the leaves. The more intact the leaf is, the better price you're going to get, and the more weight you're going to have. So between the 3 or 4 or ever how many of them, this was the community machine to do this with, basically. Okay, ever how many of them, ever how many acres they had at the time, they decided that they could afford to do this. So it was time to start that process, and you know, they needed to get this done because they didn't want to do it that way anymore. So anyway, like I say, I think it took them like about 3 days, basically 3 days to get this done, have it running and operating and in the field doing its thing. Okay, now the sprayer part, I don't know, they had an old pull behind sprayer, pasture sprayer, whatever you want to call it, and that's where the booms came from. I don't even know how long the booms, what the booms measure. It's not very long. I have no idea. Doesn't need to be very long to make a whole lot of ground when you're spraying tobacco, though, because the fields typically aren't that huge, so on and so forth. But it's got 2 valves on it, so you can run this boom and you can run that boom, or you can run both booms together. Doesn't really matter. Anyway, the chemical tank here, spray tank, whatever you want to call it, I don't 100% know its origins, but it came to them unmarked. It didn't have this label on it right here where it tells you how much, how many gallons it is. Okay, it's a 200-gallon tank. So my grandfather, my mom's dad, measured this thing. Okay, now this predates Google, and I'm pretty sure, which he was a math wizard anyway. He was. There's just no way else to explain the man. He was a math wizard. Okay, and largely unschooled. So anyway, he figured out how to. You can kind of, I hope anyway, the camera's going to pick it up, but you can see there's a mark, and a mark, and a mark, and a mark. Okay. He measured this tank and figured out its volume in gallons by, like I said, by himself, figured out its volume in gallons by using a tape measure and some math, and came up with, I think it's, you know, you can't read it anymore, but you can see where he made his marks, and then there would have been numbers written there as well, and marker or whatever else he had. So I can remember that, and he was, well, there's his mark. There's the mark for the sticker that's on the tank. Okay, he came up with 200 gallons, which this line is 180, so then right to the top, 200 gallons basically. But anyway, as I said, he's the one that came up with all of that good information and stuff. And I think the tank came a year after. But anyway, you know, my dad, the seat that was on it came out of an old 60s model Chrysler, big Chrysler car of some sort. This is not it. This is something else. I don't even know what that came off of. Doesn't really matter. That was added by the last guy that had it, and it was, you know, it was a junkyard seat as well. But anyway, and this fuel tank that came off of a Farmall Super C. Okay, you know, they spent very, very little money Even the pump for the sprayer, the spray pump down here, came off of the little wheel type boom, pull behind boom sprayer that somebody had. I don't even know where it came from, but basically they spent little to no money after the $1,500 purchase price, which, you know, that's, you'd say, you know, that's a lot for a hunk of junk, right? Well, up until 2003, when the federal government issued a buyout for tobacco, for, you know, buying out of tobacco, they bought out your base, your amount that you were supposed to have, paid you for it for 3 years, and whatever. Anyway, a lot of people sold out, so the market dropped out of these things. But you know, a nice looking one of these would have cost $4,000 to $5,000 in that day and age. And at that time, you know, the machine's 40 plus years old. So that was just kind of it. They had, and in the 70s, when everybody, and I mean everybody in this area, had a tobacco field, these were worth a lot of money. I mean, they really were. That's why there was a junkyard for it and everything else. So my goal for today is I'm going to change the engine oil, because let me show you this right quick. I don't know if it's condensation from sitting or what. By looking at that oil filter, you can tell by how sun bleached that is and so forth. That's actually gum off of tobacco plants right there, off the leaves of tobacco right there. That's on that. And how sun bleached that is and everything else. It's pretty old oil filter. So anyway, that oil just looks nasty, basically. And it's losing coolant. This is not the original radiator fan setup. The guy that had it previously, he didn't, or the old original radiator rotted out on him and started leaking, so on and so forth. So he went up to the junkyard and picked up that thing and that fan and made do with that for what he was doing with it, which worked out for him, and it'll work for me too. But I'm losing coolant somewhere. I don't know if it's head gasket or if this radiator is in fact leaking, because it's wet down here. Not a huge deal either way. If it's a head gasket, yeah, I don't know how much that's going to cost, but I'm sure I could probably find one, and it'll be easy enough to do, because, well, look, it's right there. If it's the radiator, well, I might look into an original radiator, because this one is kind of a bear to deal with. But anyway, the original style radiator still is like $300 or $400, if you can even find a good one. But anyway, and then once I get that done, I was going to test and see that the spray system still worked and all that good stuff. Guy that had it most recently before me says there's antifreeze in that pump. I hope there is. But anyway, first things first, we're going to fire this turd up and let it run, warm up a little bit. We'll go from there. Like I said, I'm going to change the oil first before we do anything else with it, and then we'll go from there. So if you've never heard one of these run, I have a pretty distinct sound to them, to say the very least. Oops, gotta turn the gas on. Gotta turn the gas on. So there's gas on right there. They have a pretty distinct sound to them, or at least this one does anyway. It might not be all of them, but this one sure does. So I'm going to stick you guys about right here. Actually, just like here, so you can kind of see the engine maybe. Anyway. Oh. probably a little bit cobbed up, but sounds pretty good, really. I mean, for what it is, it sounds really good. It's never had an intake on it since I've been around it, so I'm not too worried about that. I gotta hook up my fan here too because I don't have a switch. As you can see, that blow-by is pretty thick coming out of there. He's pretty tired, but it does work. And it always did. So, I'll get back to you in a minute, and I've talked about this thing long enough. It's time to let it do some work, I guess. Alright, so got it outside, got the oil changed, filter changed. It was nasty as can be. We lost a little bit of oil pressure by the gauge by changing the oil, but I don't care, it'll be okay. I'm happier knowing that it has actual oil in it right now rather than something else. Probably gonna have to replace this hose, but anyway, we got about 65 gallons of water in it right now. And now that we've got water in it, we have well, where is it coming from even? Is that the weep? Okay, so the weep hole in the pump is leaking. At least it's not the shaft seal. Anyway, we'll have to deal with that at some point, obviously, but when we will deal with it, I do not know. Well, it might have to be sooner than later. But anyway, we're gonna go test it and see if it'll spray or not. So I'm just gonna take it to the field up here in front of the house. The first one I baled hay in there a couple weeks ago, see if it sprays water or not. Hopefully it does, but we're gonna go find out. Okay, so we are unfurled. Excuse the chainsaw, apparently a neighbor has a logger up there. Anyway, can't help you with that. So, as I said, we're spread out here. Now, to see what, if anything, the old girl will do. First off, yeah, that should be neutral. So, this might be hard to do with one hand because it's finicky. I'm gonna switch on. Okay. So now, pump is on, I believe. Okay, we got pressure. Look at her go, boys. 40 pounds. But okay, so now we got spray over there. Okay, so the valve for my right hand boom is stuck, so we're gonna have to do something about that. I think, if I remember how this works, you could cut your pressure down with this gate valve. Well, you can turn it off with the gate valve anyway. Well, hey, it's actually spraying. Only thing I'm gonna spray with it's gonna be 2,4-D, so, but for obvious reason well, number one thing I got to do is there's a little hydraulic pump, belt-driven hydraulic pump down there. And I figured get that thing working. And then one of these levers here raises and lowers the booms. But I'm still gonna have to have drops, I think. So anyway, let's go for a little ride along, I suppose. And my dumb ass made a mistake. I forgot to plug in the fan. So, as I already knew, I'm going to have to get a fan, or that wired in on switch, so I'll have it, basically, because I'll forget to plug that in every time. But anyway, you know, hill girl spraying. I got a couple nozzles that need some work and stuff like that, and I've got to, like I said, I got to get my hydraulics working again so I can lower this down, and then I'm going to have to get drops put on here to eliminate drift and just in general nastiness that comes along with having the booms and nozzles way up high in the air. Yeah, I probably would have stopped back there when I noticed it was getting hot, but I just really don't trust. I don't know what the brakes are on this thing, how they work. It does have independent brakes for both rear wheels, which is a nice feature in certain situations. But I don't know if they work if the main belt brakes or not. I think they do, but I'm not 100% sure. I know if the main belt brakes, it's in neutral. And I'm not 100% sure that those also aren't actuated on a belt. So it's one of those I gotta try and figure it out kind of things. But it sprays. Like I said, we got a few nozzles that need work done. I'm gonna put drops on it anyway because that's just gonna be better. Well, I can either put drops on it or I can raise this bar up so it'll hang lower. I don't know. It's one of those things we're just gonna have to play with it and find out. Okay then, I'm gonna have to crawl down there and turn off the fan now, but anyway, meet John Deere Blue. That's what this is. Go ahead and laugh if you want to. I'll understand. But as if you can point out something that was more of a pinch build and more ingenuity involved than what this thing was, I'll be happy to see it. Tag me in a link. Thanks for watching.